The jungle was supposed to be empty, but when explorers cut through the vines in the 1920s, they stumbled onto stone towers buried deep under the green canopy. Giant walls, temples, carvings of animals no one could recognize, entire cities swallowed whole, then forgotten. It wasn't supposed to be there, and yet it was. Now imagine this wasn't the only place. Across deserts, under oceans, beneath frozen tundras, strange structures keep reappearing. Stone blocks that weigh more than a modern crane could lift. Pathways cut with precision we can barely copy today. Ruins sitting miles away from any sign of civilization, as if someone, or something, built them and walked away without explanation. It's unsettling, right? Because this isn't myth. These aren't campfire ghost stories. These are real sites. You can fly there, stand on them, touch them. And yet, nobody can tell you with absolute certainty who made them or when. Recorded history only stretches back a few thousand years, but some of these discoveries, they whisper of ages much older, ages before anyone supposedly knew how to farm, build, or even write their names. It's like stumbling across a smartphone in an Egyptian tomb. It shouldn't be there, but somehow it is. Picture this. A diver swimming off the coast of Japan suddenly sees a staircase descending into the ocean depths, perfectly carved, perfectly aligned. But when scientists check the records, there's no mention of a culture capable of building it. Just silence. The site has been nicknamed Japan's Atlantis. Convenient, right? Or take the mountains of Turkey, where an excavation uncovered an underground city big enough to hide thousands of people. Not huts, not caves. A city. Ventilation shafts, tunnels, chambers. No one knows who built it, or why entire generations decided it was safer to live beneath the ground than above it. It raises questions that history books don't like answering. If ancient people were so primitive, why do we keep finding their fingerprints carved in stone more advanced than our textbooks allow? Did we lose a chapter of human history? Was there an earlier wave of civilization erased by time, flood, or fire? Or maybe they just knew something we've forgotten. And sure, some say, well, it's just erosion, just coincidences. Sometimes rocks look like stairs. Sure, sometimes. But when those coincidences start lining up in patterns spanning continents, the odds get weirder, almost like someone wanted us to find the trail. That's the tension we sit in today, between what we're taught and what the Earth keeps spitting back at us. Ruins that shouldn't exist, discoveries that don't fit the timeline, tools, carvings, monuments, little reminders that the past is far more complicated than the neat little box we try to shove it into. And the truth is, it's not just about old stones. It's about us, our origins. Because if entire civilizations rose and fell before our earliest official history, then what does that say about the story we tell ourselves? What does it mean about where we came from and where we might be going? Some of these sites have explanations. Some don't. Some have been debunked. Others remain open mysteries. But they all share one thing. They force us to stop and wonder if we've underestimated our own species. If maybe we're not the first ones to stand here, staring up at impossible buildings and scratching our heads in disbelief. So, tonight, we're not rewriting history. We're just opening the door, walking back into the shadows of a world that came before the world we think we know. A world of builders, dreamers, and maybe forgotten geniuses. Grab your seat, turn off the lights, and maybe pour yourself a cup of tea. Things are about to get weird. Chapter 1. Cities Swallowed by Time. The jungle doesn't care about your history books. It grows where it wants, it eats what it wants, and it hides things you wouldn't believe. Explorers learned that the hard way. They thought they were just marching through endless green walls of trees, monkeys, and snakes, and then suddenly, stone. A face carved in rock. A temple peeking out from behind vines. Steps that led to nowhere but roots and shadows. That's how entire forgotten cities were rediscovered. Not villages, not broken huts. We're talking full-blown cities with temples, towers, and streets, completely swallowed by nature and erased from memory. And here's the kicker. Some of these places are so old, they don't even fit into the nice little timeline that history teachers love drawing on the board. Take Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Today, it's one of the most famous temples in the world, a bucket list tourist spot. But for centuries, it was basically eaten alive by the jungle. Western explorers in the 19th century stumbled onto it like, guys, who built this giant stone city out here? Because there's no record of anyone talking about it. And the truth is, even now, we don't know the full story. Angkor wasn't just one temple. It was the heart of a massive civilization, the Khmer Empire, with canals, roads, and an urban sprawl that rivaled ancient Rome. But the jungle didn't care. It crept in, smothered the stone, and made a city vanish. Here's the part that gets creepy. With modern tech like satellite imaging and LiDAR lasers, scientists keep finding out that Angkor was even bigger than anyone imagined. Entire neighborhoods, hidden water systems, more temples under the trees. It's like zooming out on Google Earth and realizing your small town is actually the size of New York City. But Angkor is just one example. Let's head to South America, where the jungle is even hungrier. The Amazon rainforest covers millions of square miles. For the longest time, people assumed it was pure wilderness, untouched, virgin forest. But then archaeologists started noticing bumps, mounds, straight lines hidden beneath the canopy. That's not normal in nature. So they flew drones, scanned the ground, and surprise, there were ancient cities down there, massive ones, with roads, plazas, and strange geometric designs carved into the earth. Think about that. Whole civilizations once thrived in the Amazon, with populations in the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. And when they collapsed, the jungle just tucked them away, like a messy roommate hiding dirty laundry before guests come over. Out of sight, out of mind for centuries. Now let's go underwater, because apparently the ocean likes hiding stuff too. Off the coast of Japan lies Yonaguni, a giant stone structure sitting beneath the waves. Some call it Japan's Atlantis. It looks like a staircase perfectly cut into the seabed. Long terraces, flat platforms, almost like a pyramid drowned in salt water. Divers swim down there and argue, is this natural or did someone build this? Geologists shrug and say, maybe it's just rocks breaking in straight lines. But come on, have you ever seen erosion create a perfect staircase? Nature doesn't usually do right angles. And here's where it gets weird. If Yonaguni really is man-made, it would have been built thousands of years ago, back when sea levels were much lower. That means humans were building complex structures way earlier than our history books say, like prehistoric architect level early. Imagine cavemen saying, yeah, forget fire, let's design a waterfront resort with stairs and platforms. Doesn't add up. Then there's Dwarka, an underwater city off India's coast. Local legends have always talked about a golden city of Krishna swallowed by the sea. For centuries, it was written off as myth. But when divers went down, they found stone walls, streets, and even pottery resting below the waves. The myth suddenly wasn't just a myth anymore. It was evidence. Turns out, maybe Grandpa's crazy story around the fire had some truth in it after all. These rediscoveries are more than cool travel spots. They mess with our sense of time. Because according to the official story, organized civilization only started around 5,000 years ago, when people invented writing and farming. But the ruins don't lie. Some of them are older, much older. And they tell us that humans were building, experimenting, and living in ways way before we should have. What's funny is, when these discoveries happen, the experts always scramble for explanations. Maybe it was just erosion. Maybe people built it later. Maybe it was just coincidence. Sure, maybe. But how many coincidences do you need before you admit something doesn't fit? Here's a thought. What if civilization isn't a straight line? What if it's more like waves, rising, falling, rising again? Maybe entire cultures rose up thousands of years before we think. They built cities, roads, temples, and then disaster. Floods, volcanoes, climate collapse. Whatever it was, it wiped them out. Their cities got swallowed, their names forgotten, and the next wave of humans had to start over. That idea makes some historians nervous. It means we're not the first advanced humans. It means the story of us is more complicated than a clean timeline in a textbook. And honestly, that's kind of exciting. Because every ruin, every carving, every drowned staircase is a clue. A breadcrumb trail leading back to civilizations we barely know existed. Picture this. Some explorer hacking through vines, sweating like crazy, suddenly sees the outline of a wall. He realizes he's not in wilderness. He's standing in a street. Beneath his feet, under the roots, is a forgotten city. And the jungle just laughs like, "Oh, you finally noticed. Took you long enough." And the best part? We're still finding them. With satellites, sonar, and LiDAR, we're seeing shapes in forests, deserts, and oceans that hint more cities waiting to be rediscovered. It's like the Earth has been keeping secrets, and we're only now prying them open. So, what do we do with this knowledge? Do we rewrite the history books? Do we admit that maybe humans were smarter, earlier, and more advanced than we thought? Or do we just shrug and call it erosion again? Either way, one thing is clear. The world we live in isn't just built on top of dirt and stone. It's built on the bones of civilizations we've forgotten. And every time we peel back the jungle or dive beneath the sea, we're reminded of one haunting truth. Our story is missing chapters. And the jungle? The jungle is still out there, growing, hiding, waiting for us to stumble on to the next surprise.
Chapter 2. Stone Mysteries That Shouldn't Exist. Some stones are just mean. Heavy, stubborn, and impossible to move without a team of superhumans. Or alien intervention if you like conspiracy theories. And yet, humans moved them, carved them, arranged them, and left behind mysteries that make engineers today scratch their heads. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Archaeologists stumbled onto it in the 1960s, but it didn't get the attention it deserved until later. Huge T-shaped pillars carved with animals, lions, scorpions, snakes, arranged in circles that look like they were built to impress someone who understood geometry better than we do today. Here's the kicker. It's more than 11,000 years old. Way older than Stonehenge, way older than the pyramids, way older than the start of history. And no one knows exactly who built it. And we're not talking about a small garden sculpture here. These pillars weigh up to 20 tons each. That's 20,000 kilograms of solid rock. And yet, they were quarried, transported, and erected in perfect alignment, without cranes, trucks, or forklifts. Imagine your grandpa saying, "Yeah, I just rolled this giant stone with my friends. No big deal." Yeah, okay, Grandpa. Stonehenge is the next classic. Everyone knows the picture. Big rocks in a circle, probably more tourists than sheep in sight. But think about it. The blue stones at Stonehenge weigh up to 4 tons each. They were brought over 150 miles from the Preseli Hills in Wales. That's not a casual weekend hike with rocks under your arms. Scientists still debate how humans managed it. Wooden rollers? Rafts? Magic? Probably a mix, but the exact method is lost forever. And the alignment? Don't get me started. The stones line up with the solstices. So not only did they move them, but they also knew exactly where the sun would rise and set thousands of years later. Then there's Baalbek in Lebanon. If Stonehenge makes you go, wow, Baalbek makes you go, what the? The foundation stones there are called megaliths, and some weigh more than 1,000 tons. Let that sink in for a second. 1,000 tons. That's bigger than most of the trucks you see on the highway. And yet they are carved, perfectly placed, and have survived earthquakes for thousands of years. How did humans move them? Nobody knows. Seriously. Engineers today could barely lift one with modern machines. And these people did it with bronze tools and sheer human labor. But it's not just about weight. It's about precision. Take the Inca walls in Peru, like those in Sacsayhuaman. The stones fit together so perfectly that not even a thin knife blade can slide between them. No mortar, no glue, just stones shaped to interlock. Some of these blocks weigh over 100 tons. And despite centuries of earthquakes, they haven't budged. Meanwhile, I can't even stack 2 bricks straight in my backyard. Coincidence? I don't think so.
And then there's the fun little puzzle of Beigong pipes in China. In a remote desert near Mount Beigong, there are pipes embedded in rocks that look disturbingly like modern metal tubes. They're thousands of years old, and nobody knows why they exist or who made them. Some think natural processes, others whisper aliens. But the weird part is the pattern. They go deep into the mountain, perfectly aligned. Functional or decorative? Nobody knows. And now you're imagining yourself holding a metal tube and going, is this supposed to be here? Some people say it's just ancient humans being clever. Sure, humans are clever. We make fire, invent phones, and somehow get tangled in headphone cords every day. But moving multi-ton stones with precision, aligning them to stars, and carving patterns we can barely replicate today, that's next-level clever. Almost suspiciously clever. The real kicker is how these stone structures are scattered all over the world. Europe, Asia, South America, the Middle East, even Africa. It's like someone pressed copy-paste on the concept of impossible construction, but nobody left a note explaining how or why. Different cultures, thousands of miles apart, doing the same mind-boggling things at similar times, often before recorded history even begins. Some historians try to explain it. Trial and error, they say. Generations of work. Sure, generations moving 1,000-ton blocks. No problem. And don't forget, they supposedly didn't even have the wheel in some places. No trucks, no pulleys, no cranes. Just humans, rocks, and maybe a lot of stubbornness. Honestly, I get it. I lose patience tying my shoes sometimes. Moving a giant stone without modern tools? Respect. Then there's the weird alignment factor. Many of these megaliths aren't just randomly placed. They're astronomical. Sun, moon, planets, solstices. They knew. And some of these sites predate any known written language. That means humans were calculating, planning, and observing the skies long before we invented pens, paper, or spreadsheets. Imagine explaining the solstice to your friends. Yeah, the sun will rise here in exactly 12 hours and 47 minutes. And your friend just nods. No calculators, no clocks, just stone and brain power. And it's not just, look how strong we are, or look at our knowledge, either. Some of these sites feel purposeful, like they were meant to impress, to inspire, maybe even to communicate with forces we no longer understand. Maybe gods, maybe the cosmos, maybe just other humans. Whatever it was, the stones were meant to last, and they did. What makes it fun is that every time we think we understand one of these sites, new evidence pops up. A pillar moved slightly, a carving previously missed, hidden tunnels. Some stones show tool marks that shouldn't exist with the technology of the time. We keep learning, and the more we learn, the more the mystery grows. So here's the takeaway. Stone mysteries aren't just about rocks. They're about ingenuity, ambition, and maybe a little bit of stubbornness. They challenge everything we think we know about our ancestors. And the best part is, they're still out there, hidden under jungles, deserts, or buried by sand, waiting, calling us to scratch our heads, whisper, "How did they do this?" And maybe, just maybe, rethink history itself. Because one thing is clear, stones don't lie. And if humans really built them before recorded history, then maybe, just maybe, the story we tell ourselves about primitive people is wildly off.
Chapter 3. Buried Beneath the Earth. Some cities don't just disappear under jungle vines or sandy dunes. They hide under the ground. Underground. Subterranean. Basically, places so hidden that you'd walk past the entrance 1,000 times without noticing a thing. And when you finally find them, well, it's like discovering someone's been playing SimCity with real people, and we had no idea. Take Derinkuyu in Turkey. It's a city carved entirely underground, stretching as deep as 8 stories below the surface. Rooms, tunnels, wells, even ventilation shafts that let fresh air circulate throughout the whole thing. People lived here, thousands of them. And for what? Maybe to hide from invaders, maybe to survive harsh winters, maybe because underground just felt cozy. Who knows? But walking through it today is surreal. You can hear your own footsteps echo off stone walls. Imagine entire families living, cooking, sleeping down here, and wonder how they didn't get lost every day. Here's the crazy part. This wasn't a quick excavation project. Derinkuyu has been expanded over generations. Every room, every tunnel, every staircase was carefully planned. It's like the ancient architects said, "We're going underground, so let's make it a palace." And they succeeded. Kitchens, stables, chapels, storage rooms, you name it, it's down there. And somehow all of this was built before recorded history even started keeping track of who did what. Then there's the Hypogeum of Malta, an underground temple older than the pyramids. Walk in, and it feels like the walls themselves are breathing. Carved entirely out of limestone, with chambers so precise you'd swear the builders had laser tools. They didn't, just hammers and patience. And if you stand in the center chamber, the acoustics are wow. A whisper from one end bounces perfectly to the other. Scientists still don't fully understand why they designed it that way. Was it for rituals, music, some kind of ancient sound therapy? Maybe the people who built it just really liked echoes. The underground cities of Cappadocia, also in Turkey, take it even further. Entire networks of tunnels connect multiple cities, some with secret passages, hidden escape routes, and cleverly disguised entrances. Imagine living your life under the ground and never seeing daylight for weeks. You'd be pretty committed to the whole underground living thing, or at least have very pale skin. And yet, these people thrived. They farmed, traded, and worshipped below the surface. It's like an entire civilization saying, "Sure, we'll skip the sunshine, thanks." And don't forget South America. Some Incan and pre-Incan cultures carved hidden storage rooms and tunnels beneath their cities. Many were designed to protect food from weather, thieves, or something else. Because if the ruins we see are any indication, they were experts at secrecy. They knew the value of keeping things hidden. And when disaster struck, floods, wars, invasions, the underground chambers preserved more than just food. They preserved knowledge, art, and architecture that would inspire generations to come.
Now, why go underground at all? Some scholars say it was defense, a way to survive invaders or wild animals.
Makes sense. But in some cases, the underground cities are huge, complex, and far more elaborate than simple hiding spots need to be. They had ventilation systems, wells, and multiple exits. Basically, they were built to support life for months at a time. That's not just hiding, that's full-on underground civilization. You'd need maps to navigate it all. Imagine dropping into Durinkhuyu without a guide. You'd probably end up trapped and your friends would be yelling, "We told you to take the left tunnel!" And the more we explore these underground worlds, the more we realize something unsettling. Humans were planning and engineering on a level we sometimes assumed didn't exist yet. They weren't just building shallow caves or small bunkers. They were designing cities with full functionality, anticipating daily life and survival needs centuries before anyone thought it was possible. It's mind-boggling. Some underground sites are even stranger. In India, Ellora caves and Ajanta caves contain entire monasteries and temples carved directly into cliffs. They're not underground in the sense of tunnels, but they share the same principle. Hide in rock, carve it precisely, make it beautiful, and make it last thousands of years. People live in stone, worship in stone, create masterpieces that survive centuries, and all without modern machinery. And it's not just about surviving or hiding. Many of these places seem designed to connect humans with something bigger. Acoustics, alignment with the sun, spiritual symbolism. There's intention. Every hallway, chamber, and stair seems to ask a question. Why? Why are you here? What are you searching for? And standing in one of these ancient subterranean halls, you almost feel the builder's presence, like they left their fingerprints on the stone, or maybe a "hey, we were here first" kind of message. Humorously, underground cities make you reconsider modern apartment life. Here we are paying thousands of dollars for concrete boxes with no personality. Meanwhile, 10,000 years ago, humans were living in labyrinths of rock, complete with water systems, secret exits, and climate control. And somehow our ancestors survived and thrived. And we can barely survive a blackout without panicking. The question always comes back. How did they do it? With what tools, techniques, or knowledge? For many sites, the answers are lost to time. Archaeologists dig, map, and theorize, but much remains mysterious. And maybe that's the point. Maybe these underground cities were built to challenge us, to make future generations scratch their heads in wonder. Exploring these sites is humbling. You walk through tunnels carved thousands of years ago and realize the world wasn't always flat, predictable, and easy. Humans were ambitious, clever, and sometimes a little stubborn. They dug down when everyone else was walking on the surface. They created something permanent in a place where you wouldn't expect it. And after all this time, the cities still speak, whispering stories we're only beginning to hear. And the underground doesn't stop at Turkey, India, or Malta. Across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas, hidden chambers, caves, and tunnels keep turning up, each one more puzzling than the last. Each one asks the same question. Who were we before history began recording our names? Who built cities so complex, so functional, that they rival modern engineering? And why did we leave them hidden, buried beneath the earth for centuries? Standing in one of these ancient underground cities, you realize something simple but powerful. Humans have always been builders, planners, and dreamers. Sometimes we bury our dreams in stone, tunnels, or hidden chambers. Sometimes the world hides them for us. And sometimes we get lucky enough to stumble across them, to see the ingenuity, the planning, the sheer audacity of civilizations we never even knew existed. And that's just the beginning. Because the deeper we dig, literally, the more secrets the earth reveals. Every tunnel, every chamber, every hidden city is a reminder that history isn't a straight line. It's a web, a maze, a subterranean adventure waiting for anyone curious enough to explore. So grab a flashlight or a drone and start looking down, because some of the most mind-blowing human achievements aren't standing in the sunlight. They're buried beneath the earth, waiting to remind us how clever and mysterious
our ancestors really were.
Sometimes history hides in plain sight, not in stone or underground tunnels, but in stories, myths, and maps. Legends that sounded like bedtime tales suddenly start looking like breadcrumbs left for us to follow. And the closer you look, the weirder it gets. Take Atlantis, for example. Plato wrote about it over 2,000 years ago. A lost civilization, advanced beyond imagination, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. People have argued about whether it's just a story, but if you step back, it starts to feel less like fiction and more like someone's memory of a real event. Floods have happened, tsunamis, rising seas, lost lands, they're real. Maybe Plato didn't pull Atlantis out of thin air. Maybe someone told him about a civilization older than he could record. And now it sits in our imagination, a warning, a puzzle, or just a really good story. And Atlantis isn't the only myth worth a second glance. Across the globe, flood myths appear everywhere. Sumerians, Greeks, Hindus, Native Americans, they all tell versions of a cataclysm that wiped out advanced societies. Coincidence? Maybe. But maybe there was a global memory of something huge, something that erased civilizations and left stories behind for us to decode. And maps also hold secrets. Take the Piri Rice map from the 16th century. On the surface, it looks like a simple map of the known world. But zoom in, and things get strange. The map shows the coast of South America and even parts of Antarctica without ice. Antarctica, the continent that supposedly wasn't discovered until 1820. And yet, centuries earlier, someone sketched it out with surprising accuracy. Who were they? And where did they get the information? Satellite imagery? I'm just kidding, no satellites back then, but seriously, how? Then there's the Mappa Mundi and other ancient maps that depict lands and coastlines we thought humans couldn't have known yet. Explorers often dismissed them as fanciful or purely theoretical, but when archaeologists dug deeper, some details lined up surprisingly well with actual geography. And that's when you start wondering, did these people inherit knowledge from civilizations older than our history books admit? It's not just maps and myths either. Ancient texts, carvings, and symbols contain knowledge that seems way ahead of their time. The Sumerians recorded astronomical observations, tracking planets and stars with precision that makes modern scientists raise an eyebrow. The Maya had calendars that could predict eclipses accurately for centuries. And remember, this is before telescopes, computers, or smartphones. Just pencil, clay, and human brains. And yet somehow, they were keeping time, watching stars, and building calendars better than many of us today can with Google.
And here's where the fun really begins. Sometimes these myths and maps overlap with real sites, like the underwater city of Dwarka in India. Local legends described a golden city swallowed by the sea. Modern divers found ruins, stone walls, streets, pottery. Legends suddenly were not just stories. They were hints, pointing us to real places. Maybe other myths, long dismissed, are the same. Warnings, records, or instructions left behind by people whose names we'll never know. What's wild is how global this is. Myths of floods, lost cities, and advanced peoples appear from China to South America. Maps that shouldn't exist, but do. Knowledge that shouldn't be possible, but somehow survived. And sometimes, it feels like humanity is playing a cosmic game of telephone, passing knowledge in whispers, stories, and carvings across generations, across continents, across forgotten ages. Humorously, it also shows human imagination isn't new. People weren't just staring at the stars thinking, "What a pretty sky." They were calculating,
recording, and maybe even leaving messages for future generations. Like, hey, when you dig this up, you'll know we were here, and yes, we were smarter than you think. A little cheeky, right? But that's the vibe you get from some of these ancient myths and maps. Then there's the question of why this knowledge was hidden. If civilizations were advanced, why disappear? Why leave only stories, myths, or partial maps? Some argue it was natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. Others say invasions, wars, or collapses erased everything but whispers. And maybe, just maybe, some civilizations chose secrecy. They knew too much, or their knowledge was dangerous, or they simply didn't care about being remembered. But here's the thing. Even though much of the knowledge seems lost, echoes remain. Myths, maps, and texts are like puzzle pieces scattered across time. And when you start piecing them together, a picture begins to form. A picture of humans who are clever, observant, and possibly far older and more advanced than we've been taught to believe. And that's the thrill of this chapter. Unlike ruins, you don't have walls or stones in front of you. You have stories, clues, cryptic messages passed down across centuries. And the best part? You get to wonder, imagine, explore the connections, play historian and detective at the same time. And every so often, when a myth lines up with a real discovery, like Dwarka or flooded coastal cities around the world, you get that little aha moment that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew. It's humbling, really. Humans have always recorded their world, sometimes in ways that baffle us. Stories become history, myths become clues, and maps become treasure hunts. And through it all, we see one constant: curiosity. Humans were curious, ambitious, and observant long before they had pencils, paper, or cameras. They were recording, teaching, and maybe even leaving us breadcrumbs. And now, centuries later, it's up to us to find them. So when you read an ancient story or look at a dusty old map, don't just dismiss it as fairy tale nonsense. Maybe it's a guide. Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's a peek into a world we forgot existed. Because when myths, maps, and knowledge collide with actual discoveries, that's when history gets really, really interesting. And the best part? There are more stories out there still buried, still hidden, waiting for someone to notice. And every time we uncover one, it's like history winks at us saying, "We've been here the whole time. You just forgot to look."
Humans have always loved to tinker, build, invent, and sometimes leave stuff behind that makes future generations go, "Wait, how the heck did they do that?" Welcome to the world of lost technologies. Tools and techniques that shouldn't exist, yet somehow do. Take the Baghdad battery. Found in Iraq, this little clay jar with a copper cylinder and iron rod looks innocent enough, but some scientists think it could have been an ancient battery, a way to store electricity. Think about that for a second. Humans, thousands of years ago, may be playing with electricity. Not lighting up bulbs like we do, sure, but generating voltage. It's so weird, so small, and yet oddly genius. And it leaves you wondering, what else did they know that we've completely forgotten? Then there are the precision stone cuts you see in Egypt and Peru. We already talked about Inca walls and Baalbek megaliths, but the tool marks are still baffling. In Peru, stones weighing over 100 tons fit together perfectly without mortar. No gaps, no cement, no glue, just stone. And in Egypt, some granite temples have cuts so smooth and precise that even modern lasers would struggle. People say maybe they used copper chisels. Sure, copper on granite. Good luck with that. Honestly, I can barely cut a carrot with a dull knife without complaining. And yet these ancient people were basically stone sculpting masters. And let's not forget metalworking mysteries. Ancient Egyptians had objects made of iron before iron smelting was common. Ancient Greeks had Damascus steel, whose method of production was lost for centuries. Even in South America, bronze and other alloys appear in ways that suggest knowledge of chemistry far beyond what we usually credit to primitive societies. They weren't just smashing rocks together, they were experimenting, innovating, and mastering materials we think we only figured out centuries later. Some tools are outright weird. In the 19th century, a metal plate was found embedded in rock, showing signs of machining that, by all logic, shouldn't have existed at that time. And then there's the story of ancient lenses, like the Nimrod lens from Iraq, a piece of rock crystal shaped like a magnifying glass. Could they have been using it to start fires, magnify objects, or even as primitive telescopes? We don't know for sure. But the fact that someone shaped it deliberately, with skill and purpose, shows knowledge that surprises historians. And don't get me started on the Antikythera mechanism. Ancient Greeks, around 100 BCE, built a device that calculated eclipses, planetary positions, and lunar cycles. A mechanical computer, a full-on analog computer. And then it disappears. For over 1,000 years, nothing like it exists. Imagine being the guy who built it and knowing, yeah, this is amazing. I'm the smartest person alive. Then the world forgets about it. Brutal.
What all these discoveries have in common is a simple truth. Humans were experimenting with technology far earlier than our textbooks suggest. And sometimes it was advanced enough that we only rediscover it centuries later. Tools that defy explanation, techniques that modern engineers struggle to replicate, and artifacts that make you lean back and go, okay, maybe we're missing something. Some researchers propose radical ideas. Maybe these technologies were passed down from lost civilizations. Maybe they were discovered independently in different regions. Maybe there were entire schools of thought, secret knowledge, that vanished when disaster struck. Whatever the case, the evidence is clear. Humans were clever, way cleverer than we often give them credit for. And humorously, it's a bit humbling. We think we're the clever ones with our smartphones, 3D printers, and AI assistants. Meanwhile, 5,000 years ago, someone is carving stones perfectly, building underground cities, or creating devices that measure the cosmos. And they didn't even have coffee. Imagine doing all that work without a single latte. Respect. But the real thrill comes when these lost technologies connect with other mysteries. Imagine finding a precise Inca wall, a lens for magnification, and a calendar that predicts eclipses. Put them together, and suddenly it looks like a civilization that was both practical and philosophical. They weren't just surviving, they were observing, learning, and innovating. Their tools weren't just functional, they were statements of genius. And that's the pattern we start to see over and over. Lost technologies appear alongside architectural marvels, underground cities, and myths that hint at forgotten knowledge. Everything seems to be pointing to the same conclusion. Humans were doing incredible things long before anyone thought they could. We're talking about a kind of intelligence that combined observation, experimentation, and sheer persistence. And it leaves us with questions bigger than any answer we have. Like, if all this existed before recorded history, how much do we truly understand about human capability? Were these technologies rare anomalies? Or were they part of a wider network of knowledge that got wiped out? And most importantly, if they existed once, could they exist again? Could rediscovering these lost techniques change the way we live today? Some of the artifacts hint at philosophical thinking too. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just practical, it was about understanding the cosmos. Lenses weren't just functional, they were about observation and precision. Underground cities weren't just hiding places, they were carefully engineered communities. Technology, in these cases, wasn't just tools, it was knowledge, wisdom, and sometimes art. And the humor of it all? Even with all our modern tech, we still get lost trying to replicate these tools and techniques. A laser cutter today might struggle with the precision of a 4,000-year-old stone wall.
We can launch rockets, split atoms, and send probes to Mars, but moving a 100-ton stone perfectly into place? Still challenging. The past is giving us a subtle, sarcastic wink. Beat this, modern humans. Ultimately, lost technologies remind us of the big picture. They challenge the timeline we take for granted. They make us question the story we tell ourselves about primitive humans. And they hint that the real history of human innovation is far stranger, far more impressive, and far more mysterious than we often admit. So the next time you see a perfectly cut stone, an ancient device, or a mysterious tool embedded in history, take a moment, appreciate it, scratch your head, laugh a little, and maybe, just maybe, realize that the humans who built it were thinking in ways we can barely comprehend, and doing things that still leave us wondering thousands of years later. Lost technologies aren't just relics, they're challenges, invitations, reminders that history is alive, strange, and full of surprises. And the more we explore, the more we realize humans have been clever for a very, very long time.